You are listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, where it's all about responding with confidence to the legal, financial, and personal challenges created by a disability, unexpected illness, or aging in general. Join us weekly as elder law attorneys Barbara McGinnis and Chris Johnson, along with other members of the Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning team, talk about the tools, techniques, strategies, and services that will make the elder care journey easier for everyone involved. Get ready, because aging starts now.
When people think about using Medicaid to cover care, whether it's in a skilled nursing facility or at home, one of the biggest fears they have is that the state will take their home. It's a concern that we hear every single day here in our office. The fear is tied to a process called Medicaid estate recovery. It is real, but it's often misunderstood. And for many families, it can lead to real pain, heartbreak, and financial devastation. On today's episode of Aging Starts Now, we're diving into this frequently misunderstood topic of estate recovery, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. Joining us for the conversation is certified elder law attorney and partner here at Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning, Miss Barbara McGinnis. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, Dana.
So for our listeners who may be unfamiliar, what is Medicaid estate recovery and why does it even exist?
Okay, so Medicaid estate recovery is a program inside the Medicaid department or administered by our state Medicaid department that it's required by federal law to attempt to recoup funds that they've paid out. The Bureau of TennCare has paid out on behalf of a person receiving long-term services and support in our state. It's kind of simple on face value. Like the federal government says we have to have it, and that is if we're going to receive federal dollars. Every state receives federal dollars to help fund their state-run Medicaid programs, and so they attempt to recover.
Okay. Well, so is everyone receiving a TennCare or Medicaid benefit? Is that subject to estate recovery?
No. Medicaid, or TennCare in Tennessee, is an insurance program. It covers certain categorically qualified individuals to receive medical insurance. The portion of Medicaid that covers long-term services and support in Tennessee is called Choices. And it's that long-term services and support, it's that benefit that is subject to estate recovery. And it's really, really interesting to point out this particular fact that this subset of a government benefit program is the only program that requires recovery or recoupment efforts, not Medicare, not Social Security, not SSI, not general Medicaid benefits, and not Medicare cost savings programs, not VA, just this one program. So I think that's fundamentally unfair. That's not a great legal argument of why it shouldn't exist, but I don't understand the arbitrariness of having recovery from this particular program.
Right. It seems that it unfairly targets seniors.
Well, seniors and certain disabled adults. So it's over the age of 55 is one of the criteria, but you could be someone younger than that and still receiving institutional care under the long-term services and supports program. Now, one of the, that was a policy change, a policy determination by the federal government to attempt to do these estate recovery initiatives, to actually mandate the estate recovery initiative. I believe that happened like 1993 or so, that it was an OBRA policy. And prior to that, it had been optional, and every state did not attempt to recover because they didn't see really great return on investment in the program, because nationwide we know that they only collect about 1% of what is spent in the Medicaid program. So it's not like we're just refilling the coffers. We're still using taxpayer dollars to fund 99% of the Medicaid program. So it's not only is it not fair, it doesn't work very well. It doesn't do what it was intended to do. And it not only unfairly targets seniors, but most of the people that use the Medicaid program or choices in Tennessee for paying for long-term care, this is a last resort kind of thing. It's the safety net. It might be middle class families who have spent tens of thousands of dollars on chronic care, and now they've come to needing Medicaid. It could be people that just did not have resources to begin with to pay for care, and the care needs exceeded the family. It really just does not happen that we have people with millions of dollars that decide they want to try to, strategize with their funds so they can avail themselves of Medicaid. That's not the case. So we've got families of limited means. Their homestead, instead of being able to transition from generation to generation, is subject to this program, estate recovery.
So that was going to be my next question. Like, what's mostly targeted for estate recovery? I mean, I'm guessing homes, but could it be like other property or bank accounts?
Well, most people just don't have much other than a home. The home is going to be an exempt or an excluded asset during their lifetime and the lifetime of their surviving spouse, minor child, or disabled child. Bank accounts are already going to be spent down to that requisite resource limit. That's a countable asset. So they're probably only going to have $2,000 or less in a bank account. Even if TennCare were to take that, that's relatively insignificant money. And other property, well, they probably don't have other property. They could have business interests that's still generating income and support for a surviving spouse or a community spouse or a disabled child or a minor child, and those get deferred. But it is primarily homesteads.
Okay. So are there protections or exemptions for the surviving spouse or a disabled child? Because I know that that's a big fear of people that come into our office is, where am I going to live if the nursing home takes the house?
Right. There are protections for the surviving spouse or disabled child. And sometimes how those rules are applied could be inconsistent. You could find inconsistencies in that. And certainly right now, if you were to pass away owning part of a house with your spouse, TennCare would not attempt recovery of your TennCare debt from the house until that spouse passed away. So it's a deferment. It still doesn't allow generational transfer of an asset, but it does protect that surviving spouse. In Tennessee, interesting enough, there is not an actual lien on the property. So most of us are pretty, understand the concept of a recorded lien. We have mortgages on our homes or HELOCs, reverse mortgages. Those are actual liens against the real estate. TennCare doesn't place a lien against the real estate. So if that surviving spouse were to try to sell the home, there's nothing that legally stands in their way from doing that. Now, title companies, that starts becoming a different conversation, whether title companies would want to see clear title, and then you could apply for a 10 care release, and you will probably receive one for that surviving spouse. It might say, may say something about a deferment or a delay of recoupment until after that spouse is deceased.
I know that sometimes the home is like a family farm or a working farm that kids have worked on, and it's also like a source of livelihood for kids. So, is there something that can be done in that instance?
That could possibly fall under a hardship category. This is another area for policy improvement in the clarity of the hardship rules around estate recovery. But a family farm where you might have one or more generations working the farm, that is their source of income, you would probably also get a deferment for that if you knew to request it.
So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of rules that you need to know and know
Mhm.
who to ask and what to ask for. And where can families go to find that help?
Well, thankfully, there is a great number of elder law attorneys in Tennessee that could help with that. There's also the Tennessee Justice Department that can help. And I guess East Tennessee has a rather robust legal aid as well.
So there are legal and financial strategies that families can use to reduce their risk.
Right. And, my experience has just been that you, you should be able to, but you cannot be able to count on um, the people that work within government programs to every caseworker that works in a government program, they may not know all their rules. Now, there's somebody there that does, but knowing how to continue to, there's attorneys that work for TennCare and they understand their rules and how to get there, and they're not intentionally trying to harm people. They are intentionally trying to do their job. And so the problem is really that this law requirement mandate from the federal government exists. That's where I think the problem is.
Right. I guess they're working for their employer,
Exactly, of course.
and doing the
And
best for their employer.
every state, while every state has this mandate, they do not all pursue as aggressively as others do. There's a few states in the nation that are very aggressive and recover up to about a third of the expenditure for the Medicaid long-term program in their state. And that, aggregated over all of the country is where we get that less than 1%. I think in Tennessee, the department is very transparent about estate recovery. They're not as equally transparent about the exceptions or exemptions or how to protect yourself and how to protect your family.
Is there any momentum for reform or to take another look or repeal Medicaid estate recovery?
Periodically, that does seem to come up. Right now, there is a representative from Illinois that has submitted a bill that would eliminate the mandate. Therefore, it would be optional at the state levels to pursue recovery or not. And the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys is certainly trying to promote awareness of the mandate, of the policy, the flaws in the policy, how lacks effectiveness, except it doesn't do a lot of good for the program, but it does a lot of harm for some people. I almost forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so the representative needs a co-sponsor on the bill at the Senate level. And, she also introduced this same bill a couple of years ago, and nothing really happened with that. I don't know that the political climate is right for reform at this point in time, but I think if we stay at it, that eventually people will see that maybe the staff that's running these programs could be more involved in other aspects. It's not like this is a program that's going away anytime soon.
Right. If listeners take away one key thing about estate recovery, what should it be?
Go into the program with your eyes wide open and make yourself informed of facts, not the fiction. It is a very misunderstood program. We're not signing over a house to the nursing home. We're not signing over a house to the state. In fact, they don't want your real estate. They would like to have reimbursement if at all possible. But with that being said, just make yourself informed about your options for paying for long-term care.
Right. And it might be spending the money to hire an elder law attorney, because at the end of the day, if you have something substantial to protect, then it's worth that extra funds to pay for legal advice of someone who's going to advocate for you.
Absolutely. And honestly, there is really not a good reason for families to rely on the business office of a long-term care facility to advocate for them with the TennCare program. Yes, they can file the application, but there is a whole lot more to it than just submitting paperwork.
Right. Because, at the end of the day, they are working for their employer as well.
Absolutely.
Right. So Medicaid estate recovery is one of those policies that many people don't learn about until it is too late, often during a time that's already difficult. So while it was designed to help sustain the Medicaid program, its real-world effects can be confusing, emotional, and financially significant for families. Understanding how estate recovery works, knowing that rules vary state by state, and learning what options may exist can make a meaningful difference. Awareness is often the first step toward better planning, and for some, even towards policy change. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation. If you found it helpful, please consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning is a life care planning law firm helping families navigate the complexities of aging, like coordinating care and paying for that care, including accessing public benefits like Medicaid. Join us next week for another episode of Aging Starts Now.
Thank you for listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast. For more information about today's show, visit tn-elderlaw.com, click on the Free Resources tab, and then click on Aging Starts Now. You'll find the show notes there. And while you're at it, why not check out all the free resources available at tn-elderlaw.com? Document downloads, the Johnson McGinnis blog, educational videos, informative articles, helpful links, a TV show, and more. It's all there, free for the taking. If you enjoy listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, please subscribe, rate the show, or leave us a review. It's easy to do on whatever app you use to listen. We would love your feedback on the show. Aging Starts Now. We'll be back next week with more candid discussions about the challenges created by aging, disability, and unexpected illness.